My name is Jake. I work as a lawyer at one of the country's leading law firms. I handle multiple major corporate clients, specializing in acquisitions, partnerships, and strategic mergers between companies. Though I am now thriving as a top lawyer, my youth was shrouded in darkness. When I was in my second year of high school, my father was involved in an accident and passed away. Our family consisted of my father, mother, older brother, and me. My mother was a part-time worker, and my brother had just started his second year working. Though my mother worked part-time, our main source of income was my father, so his loss left us in financial hardship. Ideally, life insurance should have been paid out, but due to the circumstances surrounding my father's death, approval was delayed. My father worked for a local construction company. At a construction site, he was a site manager when he was crushed by falling equipment. Not only my father, but also several employees and part-time workers were involved, making the accident major news. The public loudly criticized my father's irresponsibility as a manager, stirring up all kinds of rumors. The cause of the accident was improper stacking of equipment. Due to the carelessly stacked items losing balance, they collapsed at the slightest disturbance. A careless job allowed by a careless manager. My father's reputation plummeted. When the equipment was being stacked, my father was on leave, visiting his parents who lived far away. Thus, he neither gave the instructions nor performed the checks himself. However, newspapers and news reports didn't mention this. The accident occurred and the manager was my father, Michael. This fact was coldly reported. It was enough to fuel discussions on social media. In no time, my father's supposed misdeeds became public knowledge and spread worldwide. Fortunately, the company acknowledged that my father was not at fault for the accident. They also negotiated with the life insurance company, ensuring the life insurance payout was made. We received some sort of condolence money from the company, so we weren't immediately in dire straits, but we still had a 30-year mortgage on our house to pay. No matter how much the company affirmed that my father was not responsible, once information spreads, it doesn't disappear. People have been saying that guy from that family. I heard he even received condolence money despite causing the accident. It's audacious, isn't it? Hurting so many people and then baseless slander spread throughout the town, and my mother lost her part-time job. I know it's not Amelia's fault, but you know, the neighbors, there are people talking. I'm really sorry. After nearly 10 years, my mother was abruptly let go from her part-time job, and the shock made her bedridden from stress. I'm sorry, Jake. I can't fight anymore. It was frustrating. Neither my father nor my mother did anything wrong. Yet, why did we have to suffer this much? My father lost his life protecting his employees. He was a man of strong principles until the end. In that moment, he probably didn't have the luxury to think about what would happen to himself, let alone his family. A danger was approaching my subordinates. I have to help. That must have been the sole thought driving his actions. My father was that kind of person. It was when I was in kindergarten. Our family went camping. Excited for my first camping trip, I wanted to play in the river just like the other kids. But my father, who had experience with the Boy Scouts, knew the dangers of rivers and absolutely forbade it. Everyone else is playing. Ignoring my pleas, he taught me how to arrange stones for a campfire and how to tie knots that would never come undone. Why am I the only one? I was envious of the laughter of children playing nearby. During such a moment, an elementary school student playing in the river started drowning. A child is drowning. Hearing that, my father dropped the stones he was holding and dashed towards the river. It all happened so fast, I was confused. Stop, darling. My mother's desperate cry still echoes in my ears. Amidst the commotion around the river, my father plunged into the water with a splash and chased after the drowning child. The river had shallow areas, but there seemed to be spots where the current picked up speed, and it appeared that the elementary school student got caught in the flow. He was being swept away further and further. "Hannon there, I'm coming to save you." My father wasn't particularly good at swimming. Despite being taken by the river's current several times, he desperately caught up to the child and grabbed him. My father, lifting the child to the shore, looked heroic. He was like a superhero from a show. "That's amazing." I joined the people around in praising my father. The rescued child's parents kept thanking him, crying, "Thank you, thank you." I was proud of my father, who was being thanked. My brother also looked pleased, puffing out his chest with pride. Only my mother's face was tense. Back at the campsite, when it was just our family, my mother said, "Why did you do something so dangerous? The kid was being swept away. It's only natural to help, right? It's not our child. What if something had happened to you? How are we supposed to live? Even if it's someone else's child, that child is precious to them. I couldn't just overlook it." Indeed, as my father said, even a stranger's child is someone's treasure. Lives are what must be protected first. But my father was not a rescuer. He was just a site supervisor at a construction company. It would be unacceptable for his life to be lost as a result of rushing to help with a heart full of justice. If something like that happened, we wouldn't know where to direct our anger and would be utterly lost. As a child, I didn't understand why my mother was angry, but now I do. The absence of my father threatened our present so intensely, painfully, and heartbreakingly that my mother's cry was painful. We weren't allowed to wallow in our sorrow and had to endure baseless, heartless words. I was infuriated by the coldness and irresponsibility of the public's quick judgment. I was angry, but I couldn't do anything. I could no longer go to school. My high school life was anything but flashy. Being on the quiet side, I spent my breaks reading at my desk, and after school, it was study time in the library. Not part of any club, I didn't go out with friends like others did. Quiet and reserved, I didn't have friends. The only person who actively talked to me was probably Olivia. Olivia wasn't conspicuous, but her gentle, soft expression was charming, making her a popular figure in class like an idol. For some reason, Olivia took an interest in me. "Jake, what are you reading? Tender is the Night? Is it by F. Scott Fitzgerald?" "Yeah." "Jake, you like his books." "I don't particularly like him, but it's not that I don't." "Really? I actually like The Great Gatsby." "You like the dark stuff." "Hey, it isn't dark, it's a comedy." I had never met anyone who interpreted that novel as a comedy before. Olivia is unique. "Do you not read books by contemporary authors, Jake?" "I've read some fantasy stories involving other worlds." "Oh, I love those kinds of stories too." "Have you seen that show?" Olivia would chat innocently like this, observed from a distance by male students. On each of their faces was an unspoken thought. Why is she talking to him? It was amusing. The expressions on the female students watching these boys were aflame with jealousy, as if Olivia was trying to get attention from the boys. Being at the center of it all made me uncomfortable. But Olivia was so innocent, without malice, genuinely enjoying our conversation. So, I decided to enjoy my time with her as well. However, there are always those who envy others, unable to lead us to our cheerful conversation. They should just ignore us, as we're not harming anyone. Emily doesn't like Olivia. Despite Emily being the most beautiful and smart, capable of reigning as the queen of not just the class but the entire school, for some reason, Olivia is the most popular. Emily can't stand it. But she can't attack Olivia directly. That would cost her the popularity of not just the boys but also the girls. Emily, fitting the word cunning perfectly, targets me, Olivia's friend. "Olivia, why bother with Jake? Just leave that drab and shabby guy alone. I may be plain, but I'm not as shabby as she says. While not wealthy, my family maintains a decent standard of living. My lack of fashion sense is merely due to my own lack of interest. I've never been interested in fashion, and even if I were, my catastrophic lack of fashion sense would leave me struggling with contemporary styles. Since my grades are consistently at the top of my class, Emily probably felt she could only attack my plain personality and attire. Being a part-time model, Emily was particular about fashion. How can you have such a lack of fashion sense, even if you're not wealthy? It's beyond tacky, it's vulgar. Emily, that's harsh. Hey, since you're a model, why don't you give Jake some advice? Why should I have to take care of someone like Jake? I might catch his vulgarity. The classmates chuckled at Emily's remarks, though their laughter seemed forced. My relationship with my classmates wasn't bad. Since I was slightly better at studying, I would help with homework and test scopes, offering study advice. Our relationship wasn't severed by hatred. While we weren't friends, we had a decent interactions as classmates. Emily isn't satisfied unless she's the queen. She always needs to look down on someone to affirm her superiority. Who would be her target? Among the classmates wary of becoming the next target, I was the only one who remained aloof. Perhaps that's what irked her. No matter how much Emily ridiculed me, I didn't care. I've never been interested in others, and if me being the target could save my classmates, then so be it. It wasn't about trying to earn favors. It was just too bothersome. Fighting back would only play into Emily's hands. There was no need to give her the satisfaction. So, I let her say what she wanted. But I couldn't forgive what was said about my father. Your dad, I heard he seriously injured one of his subordinates. What a terrible father. You should apologize on his behalf. My dad did nothing wrong, and he's not terrible. Stop saying irresponsible things. Who's being irresponsible here? Your dad was in charge, right? Then it's only natural he should take responsibility. Everyone knows, don't they, that it's your dad's fault. The classmates couldn't affirm or deny it. They just looked down, waiting for the storm to pass. Normally, I wouldn't care, but this time, I really hoped someone would speak up. Among my classmates, there were those whose family members worked at the same place as my father. They should have been told the true story. I wished for someone to restore my father's honor. I was looking around hopefully, but everyone averted their eyes from me. I was devastated. I hadn't really been expecting much, but even so, I no longer wanted to be in the same place as those who wouldn't utter a single word in defense, not at this juncture. Due to financial reasons, I decided to drop out of high school. My mother and brother tried to persuade me to at least finish high school. We can afford to send you to school. Dad's life insurance was paid out. At least graduate from high school, please. You don't have to worry about money. I'm earning a salary too. You're much smarter than me, so go to college. I can earn enough for your tuition. Please, continue your education. I wanted to go to college too. There was so much I wanted to learn, and I wanted to read various books and become a writer if possible. But I didn't care anymore. I was grateful for my mother and brother's feelings, but I no longer had a reason to attend high school. Dropping out of high school doesn't prevent one from becoming a writer. Perhaps having faced setbacks might even help me write better books. I could use this frustration as material for my stories. I chose to drop out of high school and start working. Fortunately, Mr. Smith, the president of my father's company, heard about me and offered me a job as a part-timer. Your father was a great asset to the company, saving his colleagues. It's truly regrettable that the wrong story has spread about him. I'm sorry for what has happened. It may not be much of an apology, but would you consider working for us? We can hire you as a full-time employee right away, so could you start as a part-timer? It was an offer I couldn't refuse. Part-time is fine with me. Thank you very much. From that day, I started working at the company where my father used to work, as a part-timer. I worked furiously every day. To shake off the frustration in my heart, I moved my body and worked until I was utterly exhausted. The work available to a high school dropout part-timer like me was mostly menial. Moving things from one place to another. Even that was a new experience for me, and there was much to learn. Everyone at the workplace was kind, treating me like a younger brother, a son, or a grandson. No one spoke ill of my father. "You're Michael's son. You resemble him in your sincerity. Michael, you know, he was the first to help us when we were in trouble, just like a hero. He often bragged about you. My sons are much better than me," he'd say with such a happy smile. In the cafeteria, the break room, the restroom, people from various places would talk to me. Hearing stories about my father that I didn't know was refreshing. Michael really helped us out. It's such a shame how he passed away. Some employees even teared up saying this. My father truly lived here, loved by everyone. I was happy to learn this fact. I wanted to repay the kindness of those who loved my father. I learned the work from the staff, desperate to be of some use. Mr. Smith always kept an eye on me. He must have been observing my work all this time. One day, Mr. Smith came to me and said, "Jake, do you like studying?" "Yes, I do." "Do you want to learn more? If there's an opportunity." "I see, I thought so. Actually, Charlotte from the HR department told me you were reading a book on labor law. Are you interested in law?" "Yes. In fact, the other day when I was working overtime, Charlotte told me it was a violation of labor regulations, so I couldn't continue. I didn't understand what that meant, so I borrowed a book from her." "Did you understand it then?" "Partially." Mr. Smith fell into thought for a moment. Had I done something unnecessary? Should a part-timer like me not be interested in labor laws? As I stood there anxiously, Mr. Smith spoke up. "How about it, Jake? Would you like to go to college and study law? I can cover everything, but I can pay for some of the tuition." I was taken aback by the sudden offer. What was he suggesting? "Mr. Smith, I dropped out of high school. There's no way I can go to college." "What about attending a community college? I'll cover the costs, of course." "Wait, why would Mr. Smith cover the costs? We caused a lot of trouble for Jake and your family because of the situation with your father. You were subjected to unfounded slander and must have suffered a lot. We should have spoken up more loudly to correct the mistake. I failed to make that effort, and I truly apologize. I know an apology now doesn't change much, but I want to help you, or rather, let me help you." Moved by Mr. Smith's sincere request, I felt touched. "Mr. Smith, we've received enough apologies, and I'm already working here. That's enough for me." "No, it's not enough. You have potential. It would be a waste for you to not use your talents here. How about it? Why not aim to become a lawyer?" That proposal took me by surprise, leaving me nearly speechless. "It seems you're interested in law, and we could use a reliable in-house lawyer. But becoming a lawyer isn't that simple. I know. Our current lawyer has been doing a great job for us so far. He's getting on in years, though, and we'll need to find a successor eventually. What do you think? Can you become a lawyer by the time we need to find a replacement?" What a reckless idea. Despite knowing it was audacious, I was thrilled. Because my dream at the time was to become a lawyer. I had experienced the coldness and ugliness of the world through my father's situation. People who casually infringe on human rights and spread slander. The only way to counter them is with law. Law is the ally of those crying out for help. In times of tragedy like my family's, I wanted to be someone who could stand by them, support them with the law, and fight back. The wounds of the heart are deeper and more painful than physical injuries. To protect human rights and honor, which should be equal and fair, The power of law is effective. As a lawyer, I could protect people from undeserved suffering. I was grateful for Mr. Smith's offer. Though I had many conflicting emotions, I decided to rely on Mr. Smith's kindness. "Mr. Smith, thank you. I would like to pursue higher education. Could I just ask for permission to attend community college and for the entrance fee? Not just the entrance fee, I'll pay for all your tuition." "No, I must decline. I appreciate your sentiment, but I can't be that reliant. My father would be angry. I'll earn my tuition myself." "How will you do that?" "There was an ad for a newspaper delivery job, so I was thinking of doing that." "Then you should work at our construction site. We're short on traffic control staff on weekend and holidays. It should pay better than a paper route." "Thank you so much." With the warm support from those around me and Mr. Smith's assistance, I was able to go to college and continue my studies. I studied fiercely every day. While others were busy with clubs, parties, and social gatherings, I focused solely on my studies. I studied and worked. I had neither the time nor the financial freedom to play. My goal was to pass the bar exam and become a lawyer as soon as possible. That's where my journey of giving back would begin. I couldn't get into law school, so I had to start with the preliminary bar examination. The path was long and the study material extensive, but I managed to pass on my second attempt. Having finally become a lawyer, I was introduced by Ben to a law firm in another state. This firm specialized in corporate cases, so it was expected to be a valuable learning experience. The idea was to learn and bring that experience back to the company. I was on it. The office, bustling with major corporate clients, kept me, a rookie lawyer, constantly on my toes. I'm not sure if they saw potential in me or just needed a handy helper, but I was assigned to work with the ace lawyer. George, the ace, was incredibly skilled and known as a lawyer who never lost. His methods were thorough, not shying away from bold tactics to secure victory. He always clinched victory without letting emotions get in the way. While his methods were controversial, he was undoubtedly a figure worthy of respect. Though I was often pulled in all directions, I learned a great deal from him. I won't take such extreme measures like him, though there were aspects that served as a cautionary example. After 5 years of learning under him, I finally returned to my hometown. That's when I received an invitation to a high school reunion. Wondering why I was invited despite having left school early, I still felt a sense of nostalgia. With my return home decided, I thought, why not attend? Either time had softened my feelings, or I had become more forgiving. So, despite the unpleasant experiences, I decided to go. It was the day of the reunion. The venue was a restaurant near the station. It had a stylish and somewhat upscale ambience. I saw familiar faces here and there, evoking strong nostalgia. Having left school early under such circumstances back then, I wondered how I should present myself upon entering. As I hesitated, a male voice called out, "Is that Jake?" "Jake, wow, it's been so long. Man, it's been ages. Jake, what have you been up to?" To my surprise, my classmates greeted me warmly, filled with nostalgia. Olivia was there too. "Jake, long time no see. How have you been?" "Yeah, I've been good. You seem well too, Olivia." "Thanks to you. Are you still reading?" "Jer, but I still can see The Great Gatsby as a comedy." "Jake, you're still the same, but it's rare to see you at a reunion. Is this your first time?" It was indeed rare, considering I had left high school early and shouldn't have been on the invitation list. Reunions were something completely unrelated to me. Yet, this time I was invited. Right, I ran into Emily that day and she invited me to the reunion. That's how the invitation ended up at my parents' house. "Well, if it isn't Jake, you actually came," Emily approached with a sly smile. Upon returning to my hometown, I left my job and took a short vacation. I thought it was a good opportunity to rest my overly busy body, especially since there was also moving work to be done. Since I was moving back to my parents' house, there wasn't much to pack. 2 weeks of vacation felt almost too long. When I visited my father's former company, Mr. Smith, who had aged a bit, warmly welcomed me back. "You've really become quite impressive. From now on, I'm counting on you as our legal advisor. Mr. Smith has really been good to me. I'll start repaying his kindness little by little. I'm looking forward to it." Even though I was on vacation, I had nothing particular to do, so I decided to work part-time for just a week. Mr. Smith suggested office work, but since I didn't want to get rusty, I chose to work on a construction site. Physical work feels good, but it makes me sweat a lot and get dirty. I used to go to the site in a crumpled shirt and worn-out jeans. Emily saw me like this and called out to me. "Is that you, Jake? Still dressed like a poor man, I see. Heading to the arcade this early. It's shameful at your age. Some people never change their lowly ways." I happened to run into her right in front of arcade, where I had stopped to make a work-related call. Emily probably thought I was coming out of the arcade, seeing me in my crumpled and sunburned state. "You must be in some dead-end job, right? After dropping out of high school. I'm working at a top tire company now, you know. I'm a manager. You used to be so smart, but look how far behind you've fallen from someone elite like me." I didn't feel like engaging, but I couldn't just ignore her. "You seem well, still as beautiful as ever." "Stop it, that's disgusting. I don't want compliments from someone like you." It's not like I wanted to praise you just for the sake of it. I had no other choice, given that there was nothing else to talk about. "By the way, there's a reunion this Sunday. You should come." I dropped out, so I don't think I belong at a reunion. "I'm the organizer, and I'm saying it's fine. It's at 1 p.m. at a restaurant called Milfy near the station. The fee is $100. But can you afford that?" "Yay, that's fine. At least wear a shirt that isn't wrinkled. Don't embarrass me." She probably wanted to show off my shabby appearance and make a mockery of me. Despite knowing Emily's intentions, the desire to see everyone after so long won over. And so, I found myself going to the reunion venue. Dressed properly for once, huh? Let me guess, is that suit rented? It doesn't suit you at all. She immediately threw a jab, but I chose to ignore it gracefully. "Thank you for inviting me. It's great to see everyone after such a long time." Acting all gentlemanly, "You're just a day laborer. Did you know? This guy wanders around during the day, playing games, dressed in a worn-out shirt and filthy jeans. I hate poor people. They'll dirty the restaurant." Her brazen behavior was off-putting to everyone around. Without regard for the atmosphere, Emily continued to belittle me. Then, suddenly, "Hey, you. The woman over there. Yes, you." A group of unsavory-looking men barged in. "You, Emily. We've got business with you." Apparently, they were there for Emily. "What do you want? I don't know you people. We've got a lively one here. Your husband borrowed money from us. Gonna pay us back. Debt. I know nothing about that. Why would my husband borrow money? We're rich. We wouldn't borrow from the likes of you. Hey, this is the IOU. Settle your husband's debt." Emily was entangled with the pursuers, causing a commotion in the restaurant. "Hey, guys, shall I call the police?" Go ahead and try. We're just here to collect what we owed." My classmates were intimidated by their menacing presence. The women were trembling with fear. It seems that Emily's husband had taken out a loan and hadn't repaid it, but it clearly wasn't a legitimate loan. It must be from loan sharks. No choice, I had to step in. "Can you all keep it down? And who might you be?" I pulled out my attorney badge from my pocket and pinned it to my chest. The sunflower of justice and freedom, and the scales of fairness and equality, represent the ideal image of a lawyer. To those involved in shady business, this badge must be familiar. I could see them getting intimidated. Emily, at what interest rate did your husband borrow the money? What's it to you? I told you I don't know. Don't be stubborn. Tell the truth. Startled by my firm tone, Emily jerked and turned pale. 23%. That's completely illegal. You're not obligated to repay. Hey, you. Who do you think you are, saying whatever you want? The borrowed money must be repaid. Please, lower your voice. This is extortion. Such language and behavior are also illegal. Shall we go to the police right now? Don't get cocky, you hear me? There are many witnesses here. Plus, this place has several security cameras installed. Look, there and there. Everything you're doing is being recorded, making it solid evidence. What will you do? Continue, or is it wiser to leave? Damn it, let's go. Intimidated by my presence, the men left. What just happened? Emily seemed unable to comprehend the situation. The classmates around us were also stunned. Actually, I'm a lawyer now. I was working at Davis Law Firm until recently. I've returned to work here. Davis Law Firm, the one that deals with big corporations. It appears there's someone among my classmates who's familiar with law firms. Is that a big deal? That firm gathers only elites. I've heard that only the top few % of lawyers can get in. How come? You, a high school dropout, are a lawyer. Weren't you an unemployed pauper? With no other choice, I shared my story with everyone. After dropping out of high school, I went to community college and then to university. I majored in law at university and graduated as valedictorian. I passed the bar exam on my second attempt and became a lawyer. After 5 years of training, I returned as an exclusive legal advisor to repay the company that had helped me. Well, Jake, you've really made something of yourself. Did you become a lawyer because of what happened to your dad? Yes, that's right. We were really awful to Jake, even though we knew his dad wasn't to blame. I know sorry isn't enough, but I'm truly sorry. I knew Jake was suffering and I didn't do anything to help. I'm sorry. Don't worry about it. All those experiences helped me become a lawyer. If you ever have trouble, just let me know. For starters, Emily, how about I help you with your issue? Gone was her bravado. Emily was now sitting dejectedly. Please, help me, she replied in almost a whisper. Back then, I resented everything around me. The misunderstanding that led to our family's downfall was compounded by the judgmental looks from others. Frustration, pain, impotence, and irritation consumed me, but in hindsight, those hardships. They made me a lawyer who understands people's pain. They say nothing in life is meaningless. Thinking about the meaning behind my father's passing still pains me, but if it was a factor that contributed to who I am today, then it's a cruel yet powerful force that has shaped me. Perhaps Emily, with her haughty and arrogant demeanor, also has insurmountable emotional barriers. It's not too late, even now. In fact, now might be the perfect time for us to talk and understand each other. Maybe she's just an unpleasant person. But that's okay. Interacting with such individuals can also be a learning experience, nourishing the person I am. An encounter with someone can lead to bonds that last multiple lifetimes. We spent our childhoods together, my peers and I. I'm not sure if we can be called friends, but we certainly shared the same moments in time. In the long journey of life ahead, who knows when we might share time together again. So, I choose to reach out rather than sever ties. Life will likely be much more enjoyable and free that way. If there's a reunion next year, maybe I'll attend. Hopefully, by then, I'll understand the meaning of comedy that Olivia talks about. My name is Michael. I was born as the son of a CEO, and I'm grateful to have been raised in a wealthy family. I grew up carefree with my sister, who is 2 years older than me, and both of us developed very generous personalities. However, my parents disliked unnecessary extravagance. Despite our wealth, we were strangers to lavish lifestyles. Their motto was to live modestly, which has deeply influenced my mindset today. Another important value my parents instilled in me was to cherish the people around me. They taught me that no one can live alone and that those who don't value others won't be valued in return. Now that I'm an adult, I truly understand and agree that this is very important. Thanks to these lessons, my sister and I, now as adults, are blessed with good people around us and are leading happy lives. Recently, my father decided to retire from his CEO position, and I'm set to take over the company. While my father will remain as the chairman, effectively, I will be the top executive of the company, which keeps me quite busy. I've been training in my father's company since graduating from college, but becoming CEO brings a sense of responsibility that tightens my resolve. During a family meeting about who would take over the company, my sister expressed interest in business but wanted to venture into a different field, so it was decided that I would be the successor. My father, who treats his children equally without gender bias, had a discussion with us, and my sister was very thankful for that. He promised to support my sister's startup financially as I take over the company. Actually, I got married 4 years ago and have been living away from my parents' house. I met my wife, Emily, through our shared hobby of tennis. After dating for 2 years and now being married for 4, I'm still head over heels for her. Emily is both elegant and beautiful. I fell for her at first sight, but the more I got to know her, the deeper I fell into the Emily trap. Despite her delicate and slender appearance, she's a woman with a strong character and resilience. She's even more robust than some men, which is very admirable. We don't have children yet, but I'm confident that if we're blessed with kids, Emily and I will do a great job raising them. With our wedding anniversary coming up in 3 months, we're discussing going out for a nice meal, but Emily says such luxury isn't necessary. Indeed, Emily, like my parents, isn't much for extravagance. The only things we really spend money on are our house and car. We also prioritize quality food ingredients. That's because Emily loves to cook. Apart from that, we never waste money. Emily's passion for cooking and our mutual preference for a simple lifestyle mean we rarely dine out, except for anniversaries. We only visit our favorite restaurant when eating with my parents. Otherwise, we mostly stay at home. But this time, I managed to convince Emily to go out, celebrating not just our anniversary, but also my new role as CEO. Emily doesn't dislike eating out, but she always says that excessive luxury undermines our regular efforts. I agree with her philosophy. That's why these rare dining out opportunities as a couple make me exceptionally excited. Another reason Emily prefers staying home is our house. We've invested a lot in building our ideal home from scratch, and Emily loves it. She was particularly involved in designing the kitchen, spending most of her day there. Emily's cooking is always delicious, making me look forward to coming home every day. Another one of Emily's favorite spots is the living room. It's designed like a log cabin with large windows that offer a view of expansive greenery. Emily loves sitting in front of the window, either in a rocking chair or on a large sofa, sipping coffee while enjoying the view. When she's not in the kitchen, she's usually there. I also love this room, so reading while taking in the scenery from the living room has become a daily routine for me. Michael, here's something to go with your reading. Wow, this looks delicious. Thanks, Emily. You're welcome. I'll take a little break too. When I'm reading, Emily sometimes makes snacks for me. My favorite is her cinnamon cookies. They're the perfect reading companion and go well with coffee. Made with rice flour, they're light and can be enjoyed in large quantities. By the way, I was able to make a reservation for our anniversary dinner. They apologized for not having any private rooms available. Thanks for making the reservation. It's totally fine without a private room. No need to apologize. We always have a private room for family meals, so they were probably just trying to be considerate. I'm just happy we can eat there. Emily is like this. She's always grateful for everything and never complains. Our values align so closely, making it so comfortable and reassuring to be together. Despite her gentle demeanor, she has a strong core. Her toughness, rarely seen, always surprises me. The next day, as usual, I head to the office. Today is a bit busier due to some handovers I have to manage. As my inauguration as CEO is fast approaching, the company is in full swing. In fact, it's officially decided that I'll take over as CEO the day after our wedding anniversary. Morning. Good morning. You're visiting clients today. Yeah, staying in the office depresses me. I see. Aita. His name is Brian, an elite in our company. But his self-awareness as an elite can be a bit troublesome. Sure, he's competent, but he constantly belittles others, looking down on them. He's exactly the type I dislike the most. Everyone knows I'm the CEO's son and that I'll soon take over the business. Brian is no exception. I have no intention of using that to my advantage, nor do I want anyone to kowtow to me. But I'm not a fan of Brian's attitude, acting as if his competence entitles him to do whatever he pleases. Displaying such behavior to the future CEO might seem straightforward, but I'll be heading straight home today, so call my cell phone if you need anything. Got it. Brian left the office without greeting anyone else, quickly making his exit. Although he's capable, his reputation among the staff isn't great, so there's a noticeable lift in spirits when he's not around. While handling the handover, I probe into Brian's recent behavior. With my upcoming role as CEO, I've been focusing on gathering feedback from employees to improve communication within the company. Then, the complaints about Brian keep coming. They all boil down to his lack of respect for others. The main grievance is about his domineering attitude. He tells others not to instruct him in his work, causing communication issues and frustration. And his reaction when someone makes a mistake. Instead of offering support, he berates and ridicules, and that's the end of it. He reportedly never gives advice on what could have been done better. Apparently, he believes that advising the weak is pointless since they won't understand, and if they improve based on his advice, it would only get in his way. Isn't that just a terrible attitude? Despite calling others weak, he seems afraid of their potential growth affecting his sales performance. It's quite pitiful. Hearing this, I've resolved to first improve the company's atmosphere once I take office. Harassment will not be tolerated. I need to have a serious talk with Brian. I was thinking, when. Michael, do you have a moment? Dad, what's up? This is unusual. There's been a complaint about an employee, and I want you to handle it. What's going on? It seems that at this moment, a certain employee can no longer tolerate Brian and filed a complaint against him. While I understand a complaint, it's not as simple as just firing him on the spot. A proper warning and a chance to change his behavior is what a company should provide. I advise the employee to keep a detailed record of any harassment from Brian going forward. And I decided to have a talk with Brian the next day. Brian, can we talk? What? I'm heading out soon. I don't have much time. I informed him about the complaint. Seriously, the incompetent always seek help. No brains otherwise. If they're so upset, they should just try to perform like me. Seriously, I can understand where Brian is coming from. He does have skills. But that doesn't justify hurting others. I made that clear to him. I acknowledge that you're good at your job, and the company values your contribution, but you do understand that doesn't give you the right to hurt others, right? On the contrary, people who don't value others won't be valued themselves, and it could ruin the talent you have. This is a warning, but next time, I may have to be more strict. Yeah, the world is just full of weak people. If everyone were as tough as me, the world would be a better place. Seriously, I'm supporting my family. living luxuriously, and still have money to spare. Everyone else is just too soft. It's up to you how you spend your money. But remember, not everyone shares the same values. Just keep that in mind. Talking to Brian can be exhausting. I'm earning money, indulging in luxuries, and supporting my family. Huh. So what does that really mean? Why does he use these as weapons to belittle others? Having financial security is wonderful because it can provide peace of mind. But isn't that supposed to calm one's own heart rather than being used as a weapon to hurt others? Luxury isn't something to flaunt. If you're indulging just to show off, it might actually be impoverishing your spirit. I can't understand it at all. Dealing with Brian and his complex feelings, I can only softly convey the message as the current president's messenger until I officially take over. Handling situations like these might actually be something I'm better at than my father. So I'm somewhat looking forward to tackling these challenges once I'm CEO, alas. As I continue my days balancing reigning and Brian and handling my handover tasks, time flies and our wedding anniversary approaches us. Brian remains unchanged, intimidating others with his attitude and acting like royalty. He even brags about his car, house, and dining experiences to younger employees, clearly fishing for compliments. Is he living just to boast about his possessions? On the day of our anniversary, I've taken half a day off work today, so I'll be home by early afternoon. Got it? Looking forward to it. Me too. Let's spend some time relaxing at home before we head to the restaurant. I'll prepare something light for lunch, so don't be too late. Can't wait. Since getting married, taking half a day off to spend the afternoon with Emily has been my treat for our anniversary. But this year I'm thinking of buying her flowers. She's not much into accessories, so I'm saving that for a milestone anniversary like our 10th. Arriving at the office, I find Brian unusually seated at his desk. Well, it doesn't matter much to me since I'll only be at the office for a few hours today. Morning. Yeah, hi. Can't this man greet people properly? It's rare to see you in the office. I've got a backlog of paperwork today. Right. Typically, employees who are often out have internal assistants to help with paperwork, but Brian's terrible attitude has made his assistant uncooperative. Moreover, Brian doesn't trust or respect his assistant, choosing to handle everything himself. In a way, it's impressive, but it always makes me think he's just tightening the noose around his own neck. All right, I'm only here till noon today, so please take care of everything after that. Okie dokie. Speak properly, will you? Well, it doesn't matter about him now. Today is our delightful wedding anniversary. Since I'll be taking on the role of CEO tomorrow, I want to fully enjoy today's anniversary and focus on the company from tomorrow. I finished the final handovers in the morning and left the company. On my way, I stopped by a florist and bought a bouquet of roses. I also picked up a message card. I went into a nearby cafe to complete the card. Exchanging letters on our anniversary is a tradition for us as a couple. We always express our feelings verbally, but it's nice to have them in writing too. I'm home. Here, Emily. Happy anniversary. Thank you for everything. I look forward to many more years together. Well, such beautiful flowers. Michael, thank you. I'm really happy. I look forward to more years together too. We enjoyed the light lunch Emily had prepared and spent the time until our dinner out watching movies, relaxing together. The restaurant we're going to tonight is a high-end establishment that my parents have patronized for generations, so it's a place where we can relax. We usually reserve a private room, but since none were available today, we'll be dining at the counter for the first time. It's a new experience, so I'm looking forward to it. When we arrive at the restaurant at our reservation time. Hello, good evening. Emily and I were led to the counter. It was raining, so we got a bit wet from the taxi to the restaurant entrance and took off our jackets to sit down. Emily laughed, saying her hairstyle got messed up. We always try to dress nicely and appropriately, but comfort is our priority, so we don't mind a bit if our appearance is a bit disheveled. First, we had some warm coffee. The coffee is warm and comforting. You got a bit wet, didn't you? Are you cold? Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm looking forward to the meal. Neither Emily nor I drink alcohol. It's not that we're abstaining. By chance, both of us just don't drink. We thought about having some wine for a change since it's our anniversary, but since there's tomorrow to think about, we decided to stick with coffee. But this coffee isn't just any coffee. It's a specialty coffee from the restaurant, not free. No compromises for our wedding anniversary. The aroma of coffee is softly fragrant and relaxing. We both wish each other happy wedding anniversary and toast with a cup of coffee. While we were toasting with our coffee, a woman was led to the counter seat next to us. No private rooms available. Private rooms are reserved for parties of 2 or more, and unfortunately, they're all booked today. Useless, as always. Give me the usual white wine. A rather high-handed woman took the seat next to us. Although she's seated a couple of seats away, her voice is loud enough for us to hear everything. Looking the other way, I caught Emily's eye. Emily just smiled sweetly at me. Ah, my soothing angel. Today is about celebrating with Emily. I regretted even momentarily paying attention to the woman next seat. Is this freshly opened? Yes, it was opened just today. Don't underestimate me. I won't accept anything that's not fresh. She's been noisy since she arrived. On our special anniversary, no less. Maybe we should have chosen a different restaurant if we couldn't get a private room. Emily, sorry we couldn't get a private room. I apologized to Emily in a soft voice. It's totally fine. Let's enjoy the meal. Emily is smiling and completely unfazed. She truly is an admirable woman. Compared to her, the woman next to us is just like a Brian type of person, interacting with others in a high-handed manner, as if she's some kind of queen. Excuse me. Yes, this is the worst. She started talking to us. Since it's our go-to restaurant, I can't just ignore another customer, so reluctantly, I turn towards the woman. You're new here, aren't you? Your aura gives it away. Not really new here, haha. She's being outright rude from the get-go. I just want to handle this quickly and end it. I saw you toasting with coffee earlier. This isn't that kind of place. People without money won't enjoy it here. Everything is high-end. Your Chardonnay, madam. The server arrived with a wine at the perfect timing, quieting the woman down as she started on her appetizer and wine. I turned to Emily, feeling relieved. Sorry about this. I wanted us to have a nice time together. It's okay. Maybe she's just lonely. How endlessly kind can Emily be? Even on our wedding anniversary, when someone else implies we didn't belong, she tries to understand their situation. I need to learn from her. Feeling ashamed of my momentary irritation. Then, our course's appetizer arrived. Delicate and beautifully presented, it brought an involuntary smile to my face. Wow, it's so beautiful. It feels almost a shame to eat such delicate food. True, but we have to eat. More is coming. Right, let's enjoy. The meal, shared with small moments of joy, tastes wonderful. We know this restaurant always serves delicious food, but opting for the chef's course means enjoying the best seasonal ingredients chosen and arranged by the chef. Emily and I always choose this chef's course. How ridiculous. Saying it's a shame to eat. Sounds like something a poor person would say. Embarrassing. The woman next to us continued with her snide remarks. Though it irked me, I decided to ignore her. Our comment about the food being too good to eat was about its artistic beauty, not reluctance to finish it. Indeed, it's delicious enough to eat endlessly. let's ignore her. Okay, I don't mind, so it's fine. We whispered to each other. Emily seemed completely at ease enjoying the food, but the staff, knowing us, looked pale. After a while, the woman who had been quiet began to show signs of intoxication. Starting with her second glass of wine, she began to snap at the staff. First, she didn't like the small appetizer. She was persistent about why she wasn't served the same appetizer we were eating. The staff explained several times, politely, that our appetizer was part of the course and couldn't be served individually. Yet, she persisted, claiming her status as a regular. Feeling sorry for the staff, I focused on enjoying the meal with Emily while they dealt with her. Just then, our main course arrived. We had the option to choose between fish or meat, and this time, we opted for meat. Eating top-ranked beef with salt. The sweetness of the fat spreads in the mouth, with salt providing a perfectly balanced accent. It's sublime. It's so delicious I could cry. I'm glad you like it. The food here is always fantastic, isn't it? It's a taste I couldn't possibly replicate. It's very educational and a great experience to enjoy food like this occasionally. Thank you for bringing me here, Michael. You're welcome. Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary to you too. After finishing our main course and enjoying a palate-cleansing sorbet, the woman started causing a scene again. She was making a fuss, demanding to be served the same course that we were eating. Noticing that our course seemed more upscale than her meal, she insisted on having what we were having. Despite her loud claims that she usually dines on more expensive fare, trying to make us aware, we completely ignored her. Then, she started boasting about her expenditures, mentioning specific dates and amounts spent, turning it into a display of extravagance. Listening to such content, I couldn't help but grimace in embarrassment. This staff, while desperately trying to maintain professionalism, explained that our course was pre-booked and couldn't be served on a whim today. Observing her, it seemed she wanted to assert dominance over us, suddenly standing up and shouting for everyone to hear. Bring out my usual $3,000 bottle. The usual. Apparently, she resorted to flaunting an expensive wine as her final move. We were here to celebrate our anniversary, not to compete with her, and frankly, flaunting wealth isn't our thing. Why there are people like her is beyond me, but at the moment, it's best to let sleeping dogs lie. Whatever expensive wine she orders doesn't concern us. We just hope she leaves us alone as we wait for the rest of our meal. Emily, too, was surprised by the woman's loud voice, but then went back to enjoying her sorbet. As we started on the next course, the woman, bottle in hand, approached us. I had a bad feeling about this. The clicking of her heels got closer, and the perfume she wore started to overpower the delicious aroma of our food. Excuse me. Yes. Have you been silently competing with me by eating all this fancy food? Excuse me. We're just here to enjoy a nice meal for our anniversary. Pretending to call the waiter over to show off your food, right? It's obvious you're flaunting it. It just happens that your seat is between the kitchen and us, and it's natural for the staff to serve our food. It's their job, after all. Annoying. Showing off with coffee toasts like simple people. And I have a piece of advice for you. The woman, for some reason, came over to our seats to pick a fight, brandishing her newly ordered expensive wine. When she started addressing Emily, I felt my patience wearing thin. Me? Yes, you. Acting all cute every time the food arrives is just nauseating. And your husband is nothing like mine. Pooh you, toasting with coffee. My husband always orders expensive drinks. You must be so jealous. I'm sorry if we made you uncomfortable. Unfortunately, I can't drink alcohol, so coffee is perfect for me. It's wonderful your husband orders drinks that make you happy. Emily's response was graceful and composed. She's just too cool. But my stance remains unchanged. If she says anything more to hurt Emily, I won't let it slide. Oh, what? Pretending not to be hurt. You know, My husband is an elite businessman earning a lot, ensuring a secure future. He's nothing like the shabby man sitting next to you. Stop. I won't allow any more insults towards my precious wife. If you have an issue, address it to me." The staff looked pale. Understandably. A regular patron is being hassled by a troublesome customer. The restaurant is in a difficult position, unable to respond properly to such a formidable opponent. Humph, what precious wife. I hate how dependent poor people are. Oh, and you've never tasted such expensive alcohol, have you? Unfortunately, both of us don't drink alcohol, so we haven't tried it. I'll just have to force you to drink it then. At that moment, my vision blurred, and I started hearing screams around me as I realized what had happened. The woman had poured the expensive wine she had been holding all this while over my head. The wine flowed like a waterfall until the bottle was empty. "Thank you, I couldn't quite taste it, but may I ask for your name? I've just now come to understand how distinguished you are." "Oh, you're soaking wet. You have to drink it all, not waste it. Now that you understand, that's good enough for me. My name is Sarah. I'm an elite's wife, so don't you dare think you're above me." "Sarah, what's your husband's name? It'd be good to remember both of you, right? As if you'd ever meet my capable husband. Brian. Unlike you, he's an elite, bringing in loads of money." "I see, I'll remember that." Seemingly satisfied, Sarah left the restaurant after only having some appetizers and snacks. The staff and the owner apologized profusely, but I reassured them it wasn't their fault. Hearing Sarah's story, it clicked that her husband was Brian. Their use of language was too similar not to notice, and sure enough, I was right. Like-minded couple, indeed. According to the staff, Sarah always visits alone and has never come with her husband. She's known to cause trouble by trying to assert dominance over other customers. Emily laughed, saying, "We really got a show, didn't we?" with a smile. Her calmness is soothing. Despite the incident, since we had finished our meal, we canceled just the dessert, used my jacket, which had stayed dry, as a makeshift cover, and took a taxi home. The next day, despite being a bit distracted by the previous day's misfortune, it was my day to officially become the CEO. After the inauguration ceremony, I entered the CEO's office. The first thing I decided to do was clear. I prepared all the necessary documents and called Brian to the CEO's office. "Excuse me." "Hi, do you know why you've been called here?" Is it a promotion?" "It's the opposite actually. I'm letting you go." What? Why?" Brian was taken aback. But I had done my homework thoroughly. After the incident at the restaurant, I had a thorough talk with the staff and the owner. And then came pouring out all the complaints about Sarah. "I happened to meet your wife yesterday." "Sarah, but what does that have to do with me being fired? She was quite rude to me, and in the end, poured an entire bottle of wine over my head." After telling Brian about everything that happened yesterday, he turned pale. Sweat poured down his face as he started to tremble. I told Brian to calm down and offered him some water. "I'm so sorry. I'll make sure to talk to my wife. Please don't fire me. It's not just about your wife." "What? Brian, you've been telling your wife to be worthy of someone like you, an elite. To not associate with poor people but to brag about you instead. To always show off your status." That's, well, indeed, Brian had been instructing his wife to strive to match him and to boast about him to the world. I cannot tolerate using our company's name to hurt others. Our company's principle is to always be grateful to those around us. You've strayed too far from that principle, and your behavior at work has been escalating, hasn't it? That's absolutely not true. I've been careful since I was warned. Do you think it's okay as long as you don't say anything? Throwing documents, ignoring people when spoken to, banging on desks, kicking chairs. All of this is considered harassment, and all the employees have been keeping records. We have all the evidence. I didn't know. I was recorded. Brian seemed to think he could avoid harassment allegations by not verbalizing it, but that's not how it works. After losing his ability to speak, Brian became even more aggressive and high-handed. I had all the records sent to me, providing ample grounds for his dismissal. While I couldn't forgive what Sarah did, if Brian hadn't been such a person, perhaps Sarah might have been different. Considering this, I couldn't just leave Brian unchecked. For the company, losing Brian's sales skills was less of a loss compared to losing other valuable employees. I made the decision to fire him in good conscience. Afterwards, Brian accepted his dismissal and left the company. Apparently, he and Sarah had been in a troubled marriage for years, initially marrying for his money. When Brian lost his job, Sarah, having lost interest, filed for divorce. However, Brian, fearing the social stigma of losing his job and getting divorced, refused. Instead, he blamed Sarah for his job loss and filed a lawsuit for compensation. Of course, Sarah refused to pay any alimony, leading to a messy divorce battle. Both were individuals who believed being a part of the elite was their status. Their marriage was more about maintaining appearances than about love. A loveless marriage eroded their souls, with Sarah maintaining her balance by asserting dominance over others and Brian for harassment. While I felt sorry for them, helping them wasn't the company's job. I hoped they would relearn what's truly important in life. As for me, becoming CEO and firing Brian as my first act turned me into a hero among employees. I didn't want to be a hero for firing someone, but I was glad it showed I treated employees fairly. To improve the company's openness, I keep the door to my office open every day. It's to make it easy for anyone to talk to me frankly. However, not many people casually stop by the CEO's office. Still, it's really fun when my colleagues, who used to work alongside me, gather in the CEO's office during lunch break to eat together. My father, now chairman, occasionally joined us for lunch, saying he never experienced such openness during his tenure as CEO. I wanted to preserve my father's teachings while introducing new ideas. Emily continued her usual routine in our home's kitchen and living room. She constantly came up with delicious recipes and let me taste test them, each one amazing. We still didn't dine out much, but considering recent events, staying home felt like the happiest option. Every night, we'd drink coffee by the fireplace, sharing our day's stories. Emily said cooking was her stress reliever and asked me to let her keep doing it, so I planned to indulge her for a while. If she ever got tired of cooking, I wouldn't mind hiring a personal chef. I'm willing to spend money for our happiness. We agreed to value our current happiness and avoid unnecessary expenses. While it meant a modest lifestyle for a while, it was our way of being happy. I'll continue working hard to protect this happiness. We even talked about a stork visiting us soon, giving me more reason to work hard. Until that day comes, Emily and I will enjoy our life together. The moment I opened the door to my childhood home for the first time in 6 years, I found myself face to face with someone I had never intended to see again. Long time no see, you're still alive, ho. Reluctantly returning home at my mother's insistence, I found that Michael hadn't changed much. Sneering at me right beside Michael was my ex-wife, Laura, whose marriage hadn't lasted even a year. Behind the two of them, a small child peeked at us from the depths of the house, hiding in my mother's shadow. The 6 years passed by in a flash, but it was just long enough for me to try and forget the two who had deceived me. However, even after such a long time, seeing Michael and Laura again brought back the deep-seated hatred I had tucked away. I never wanted to see Michael and Laura's faces again from that day forward, and I had no intention of ever returning to this house. I only came back this time because I was surprised by my mother's unusually fervent plea, begging me to come home in a raised voice, and I wanted to know why. I had no intention of staying long. I planned to hear her out at the entrance and then leave immediately. As I was ignoring Michael's mocking tone, the situation took a sudden turn when an unfamiliar man appeared. After hearing what the man had to say, Michael and Laura's faces turned pale, unlike mine, which was simply stunned. And so, the lives of all of us present in this family were greatly altered. My name is James. I'm 35 and already divorced. Despite this, I've always wanted to give back to my parents who raised me. So, having always been good at studies, I graduated from a top university and then joined a major corporation closely related to my family's business. My family runs a small-town factory, but it possesses world-class technology as a subcontractor to major companies. My father, who has been running this factory for years, is someone I've always looked up to. I intended to take over the family business ever since I was young and studied management in college, but my father had other ideas. Still, I decided to work for the major corporation that contracts us as a subcontractor to support the family business. I was filled with hope that this would help protect our family and embarked on a new life as a working adult. However, my father is a true craftsman and leads a life centered around his work. Of course, I have no memories of being taken anywhere during summer vacations or holidays. But that was fine by me. However, my twin brother Michael was always different, constantly complaining to our parents. Michael, who dropped out of high school, neither worked part-time or helped with the family business, and spent his days in excessive freedom, often going out. Even during high school and university, I worked part-time to not trouble our parents, but Michael would mock me with a sneer. "Why so serious? It's super uncool how hard you're trying." Michael and I never got along well since we were kids. He was always belittling me. Thinking it was a waste of time to engage with him, I continued to ignore Michael. While my mother worried and scolded Michael, her words felt shallow, almost as if she was detached from the situation. She would express concern for me too, but it was always in a non-committal way. "James, you're working hard every day, it's tough, but well, yeah, I'm supporting you." My mother, always vague and unclear in her intentions, felt neither like an enemy or an ally to me. Michael, even past 20, remained unchanged, frequently going out at night and returning home at dawn. He would sometimes take clothes and accessories from my room without permission, but getting angry was pointless. Surrounded by a family I couldn't rely on, my stress only accumulated. Once I got used to working and felt settled in my job, I decided to marry Laura, whom I had been dating since high school. Laura was different from my indecisive mother. Laura's straightforward nature, always telling things as they are, helps clear my hesitations. At that time, I believed marrying Laura was necessary for my life. Moving out of my parents' house upon marriage, Laura and I started our life together in a small apartment, but things didn't go smoothly. The reason was that, on top of both of us working, Laura was not good at household chores. Initially, I thought I could handle the chores, but as work became busier, household matters were inevitably neglected. 2 months into our marriage, I readily agreed to Laura's suggestion, and we ended up moving back to my parents' house. My mother and Laura got along well, and my mother was in favor of us living together. The only concern was Michael. It's not that Michael and Laura didn't get along. I was worried that Michael, who mocked us for working hard, would ridicule us. Living with Michael, who is a part-time worker and always out having fun, was honestly something I was opposed to. After moving back in with my family, my expectations for a promotion were met with frequent business trips, both domestic and international, leaving me away from home quite often. I worried every time I left that Laura might end up having to deal with troublesome matters because of Michael's freewheeling nature. Upon returning from long trips, I made it a point to rush home, but it seemed Laura managed to skillfully avoid any major issues with Michael. One day, after returning from a months-long overseas trip, I hurried home upon hearing that I was going to be transferred to the headquarters and even promoted. I thought Laura would be delighted, and with excitement, I opened the front door. Laura greeted me, but something felt off. Is something wrong? Yeah, I'll tell you later. Laura, unusually hesitant and seeming restless, laid out her words awkwardly. Hoping to cheer her up, I shared the news about my transfer. Guess what? I've got some amazing news. I'll be working at the headquarters starting next week, less traveling, and I'm even getting promoted to assistant manager. I reached for Laura's hand to share the joy, but she coldly shrugged me off. Confused and anxious, I was blindsided by Laura's shocking revelation. Actually, I'm pregnant, and the child is Michael's. I couldn't believe my ears and asked her to repeat herself, but Laura offered no further explanation. Then, despite it being early evening, Michael returned home drunk. Bro, you're back. Did you hear from Laura? Turns out something happened. It's hilarious. I couldn't see what was so funny. Michael, shoes scattered at the entrance, slung an arm around Laura and staggered into the house. Even pressing my mother for answers about their relationship only returned nonsensical responses. It's wonderful to have a grandchild. Overwhelmed by a sense of something snapping within me, I immediately started to proceed for divorce. I'll have a lawyer take care of the divorce. I silently packed my things and arranged for a move that very day. I announced my departure, but Michael, Laura, nor even my mother said anything. Disgusted with my hopeless family, I declared my disownment and left my childhood home behind. I rented an apartment near my workplace and threw myself into my job. Though I joined a company intending to prioritize deals with my family business, I was now swamped with unrelated tasks. But that was for the best. Dealing with my family's business under these circumstances would have likely led to a terrible outcome. 6 years flew by, and immersed in work, I managed to forget all about Michael and Laura. Then, out of the blue, my mother called. "James, it's been a while. I need you to come home right away. This is a once-in-a-lifetime request from me. Please, come back just this once." Pressured by my mother's rare assertiveness, I reluctantly decided to visit my family home. The divorce from Laura was finalized smoothly, but I never received any payments she owed me for her lavish spending during our marriage. Initially, I had my lawyer send reminders, but they were ignored without response. Perhaps they had no money, having had a child. I had given up on them for various reasons, and wanting no contact with Michael, I had tolerated the unpaid debts. Now, I had to face Michael and Laura for the first time in 6 years. As I neared my family home, my stomach twisted in knots. Forcing my heavy legs to move, I reached the entrance and was met by Michael's smirking face, unchanged from the past. "Long time no see, you're still breathing, huh?" Compelled by my mother's forceful words to return, I found Michael, still living at home, was the same as ever in many ways. Beside Michael, Laura, unrecognizable from 6 years ago, mocked me with a similar smirk. Facing them again, the hatred I had buried deep inside seemed to resurface. Then, from behind Michael, I noticed an unfamiliar child peeking from the depths of the house. Probably Michael and Laura's. As Michael made light remarks, my mother, holding the child, intervened to stop the conversation. "I hate to say this, but your father collapsed 3 days ago and is now hospitalized." Hearing my mother's words, I was shocked to the point where it felt like my heart might stop. But I wasn't the only one taken aback. For some reason, even Michael and Laura, who were supposed to have been living at home all this time, looked surprised. "What are you talking about, Mom? I haven't heard anything like this. What's going to happen to my life if Dad's not around?" Michael, panicking, grabbed our mother's clothes forcefully and began to shout. Laura, standing right beside him, looked worried but merely watched the exchange between Michael and our mother. It's clear now that these two are only concerned about their own lives. Since hearing my mother's words, there has been no word of concern for my father's condition from either Michael or Laura. Frightened by Michael's aggressive blame, our mother, gasping for breath, tried to talk about my father. But Michael was only piling on words about how his own life would be affected, not about our father. Realizing this conversation was going nowhere, I took a deep breath and grabbed Michael's arm to let our mother speak about my father. "Michael, cut it out." Michael glared at me as I intervened. Then, a man in a suit approached us. "Excuse me, my name is Robert, and I'm the factory's retained lawyer." We were all taken aback by this unexpected visitor. Releasing Michael's arm, I accepted the business card he offered and looked back and forth between the name written on it and the man's face. I had met Robert a few times before, a long time ago. Robert was a lawyer my usually stern father trusted enough to share a laugh with. He was the one who had handled my divorce mediation with Laura. My flustered mother sought Robert's help, almost fleeing from Michael. Standing still at the entrance, Robert began to discuss the main reason for my summons here today. "I am here today at your father's request to meet with you, James. You are to inherit the full authority over this factory. Here are the documents related to the succession, and I would like to have you sign and explain them in the factory's conference room." This was completely unexpected. According to Robert, my father had been planning to pass the factory onto me for some time. However, he had been preparing, such as hiring more employees and acquiring new equipment, to make the transition easier amid the factory's busy operations. My father had become ill from the stress of his busy life and had been hospitalized. "So, James will be taking care of me from now on. Aha, I'm counting on you, big bro." Michael, suddenly in a good mood, lightly patted my shoulder with his usual smirk. Robert then started to speak to Michael about another matter. "By the way, Michael, and your family are behind on the payments you were ordered to make to James, right? So, you are obligated to pay the overdue in full." Hearing about the payment arrears, Michael glared at Robert and grabbed his tie forcefully. "That's irrelevant now, isn't it? Besides, my big bro won't complain even if I don't pay, so it shouldn't be a problem if I don't pay, right? Are you misunderstanding something? And do you intend to commit more offenses? The president, your father, has said that anyone who does not fulfill their obligations must leave this house. This is also my house, so it's ridiculous to say I should be kicked out. Separation of households has been completed for your family, depending on the circumstances. Just being in this house could constitute trespassing for you." Michael, confused and intimidated by Robert's calm explanation, looked back and forth between me and our mother in bewilderment. Laura, realizing the gravity of the situation, became disconcerted and collapsed onto the floor, clutching her head. As I looked at them with disdain, my mother, unusually, started yelling at Michael. "Do you realize how much trouble you've caused your son Jacob? Do you know how much suffering you've brought upon our family because of your actions? This is an order from your father, so please leave immediately." I was surprised by my mother's yelling, something I had never heard before. Shrinking under our mother's fury, Michael sat down, pale-faced and unable to move. The reason my mother was so angry, on top of what Robert shared about my father's feelings, was because my nephew Jacob had been living a miserable life. The story my mother told next left me beyond shocked and utterly dismayed. Michael continued his usual behavior, not working, squandering large sums on gambling and alcohol, and accumulating significant debt. Laura, fed up with Michael, did not want to take care of Jacob and started working part-time, using the money to go out. Ultimately, it was my mother who had been looking after Jacob all this time. Growing up in such an environment, Jacob never grew close to his parents, Michael and Laura. With my father constantly away for work and only home to eat or sleep, Jacob essentially lived with just my mother. According to Robert, my father had been concerned for Jacob but had never been involved in child rearing due to his work, so he didn't know how to interact with his beloved grandson. Indeed, it seemed only natural that Michael and Laura would be disowned by my father. Michael, confused and intimidated by Robert's calm explanation, looked back and forth between me and our mother in bewilderment. Not fully understanding the situation, Michael signed the documents as instructed by Robert. Forced to leave, Michael and Laura were packing their belongings and trying to take Jacob with them against his will, showering him with harsh words. "If it's too hard to raise Jacob, I can continue to take care of him as I have been." Trying to calm Michael down as he forcefully pulled on Jacob's arm, my mother's attempt had the opposite effect. Michael glared at my mother with irritation, clicking his tongue. "Jacob is mine since I gave birth to him, so I'm his parent. Besides, children can be quite convenient, you know. It's all about how you use them. Just use the right tools for the right jobs." Laura, hinting at some malicious intent, picked up the crying Jacob. Until the very end, Michael and Laura glared at my mother and me before disappearing. I returned to the company, and after several discussions with the executives, I decided to take over the family business. I was concerned about the management of the family business, but it was in better shape than expected, and my share was even better than what I earned as an assistant manager in a large corporation. The employees welcomed me as if they had always known this would happen, and I quickly became accustomed to the factory. A few days after I returned home, I was startled by a knock on the door in the middle of a cold night. Wondering who it could be at this hour, I opened the door to find Michael and Laura standing there. Shivering in the cold breeze, they apologized to me. "Please, bro, we have nothing left, no money, no place to stay. We're family, right? So you can let me back into the house, can't you?" Although Michael was apologizing, he still had that smug look on his face. Then, Laura suddenly stood up and pressed her body against my arm. "I can stay here too, right? After all, we used to be married." I sighed heavily at Laura's words. "Listen, you and I are nothing to each other anymore. You showing up now is nothing but a nuisance." Seeing my indifferent response, Michael stood up, kicked the door, and disappeared into the night. Laura hastily followed him. Just as I was about to close the door, thinking they were finally gone, I noticed someone small crouching in the shadow of the entrance. It was my nephew, Jacob. Jacob was shivering in the cold, dressed only in his underwear. It seemed Michael and Laura were incapable of properly raising him. In a rush, I brought Jacob inside, providing him with a warm meal and a bath. After warming up, Jacob ate the meal I provided, crying. Having just started dating Sophia, who was helping me communicate with the factory headquarters, I discussed adopting Jacob and proposed marriage to her. Sophia agreed without hesitation, expressing her anger towards Michael and Laura. According to Robert, Michael and Laura eventually divorced. Michael ended up on welfare, and there were inquiries about whether I, as a relative, could offer support, but I declined, citing our estrangement. After that, Laura kept coming to me, trying to reconcile multiple times. Laura was hardly recognizable from before, looking even more disheveled. When I informed her about my remarriage to Sophia, Laura hurled insults at me before leaving. After that, there was no further contact, and her whereabouts remained unknown. Jacob, now our adopted son, turned out to be exceptionally bright and hard-working, far from what you'd expect from Michael and Laura's child. His maturity often surprised Sophia and me. My father, having recovered and retired from work, doted on Jacob, showering him with love. Before we knew it, 30 years had passed since the ordeal with Michael. The factory has grown even larger, and now it has become a major corporation, rivaling the size of the large contracting company I used to work for. The company's performance has improved significantly, and the connections I and Sophia had from our time working there have served as a network, leading us to consider expanding overseas. Jacob grew into a fine adult, and Sophia and I lived happily. When Jacob, nearly my age when I took over the factory, expressed his desire to inherit the business, I was overjoyed to tears. However, Jacob mentioned feeling guilty about suddenly taking a high position. not wanting to overshadow the employees who had worked hard over the years. Watching Jacob grow as he started working at the factory's headquarters has been my greatest joy. He continued to excel and earn promotions on his own, making me proud. Despite the hardships caused by Michael and Laura, I'm grateful they brought Jacob into the world. Without him, the factory I inherited might not have survived. So, in a way, I owe them thanks for allowing me to continue my father's legacy. Incompetent bottom feeders should sleep on the ground. It hurts. Really hurts. It seems I hit my body hard when I fell down the stairs. Lately, I've been so busy that I haven't been able to eat properly. My body, having lost weight due to this, didn't provide any cushioning. It's as if my bones hit something. The intense pain made me involuntarily furrow my brow. Wow, you fell down pretty hard. Suddenly, I was confused about what had happened. While enduring the pain, I thought it over. It was him. He pushed me down the stairs. The person responsible for pushing me was smirking at me, laughing after pushing someone down the stairs. That's insane. It's your fault, bottom feeder. The moment I saw that expression, my anger reached its peak. I will never forgive this man. My name is James Smith, a 30-something entrepreneur. I took over my father's company just last year as a novice. Originally, my elder brother was supposed to take over, but he fell. Therefore, as the second son, I became the president. I'm a man whose only virtue is being earnest, with my previous job being a mundane one that allowed for diligent work. My superiors always told me I had nothing but earnestness, and I too thought I wasn't cut out to be a president. However, my parents who raised me and my brother who cared for me asked me to take the role. Eventually, I accepted the position of president. At first, I thought it would be until my brother's illness healed. But now, working busy days, I've grown fond of the company. I visit the field and am in the midst of learning various things. I never thought you yourself would come. Please, take a look around. I was in a different industry originally, so I lack specialized knowledge. I've studied somewhat, but textbooks and the field are different. Thank you very much for welcoming me so kindly. Today, I'm visiting a factory of a business partner. We've been trading with this company for years and plan to sign a major contract soon. I wanted to see the site before that, so I asked the sales representative who happened to be at our place. They gladly accepted my selfish request to see the site. Today, I'm being guided by Michael. He's a man of my age. He's also earnest, and we get excited talking about work. Despite our different positions, we share the enthusiasm to improve our companies. Michael explains everything carefully, and I was glad I came when. Suddenly, there was a loud voice. Hey, incompetent, don't slack off. That's why you're incompetent. I was startled by the loud and cold voice. Incompetent. What did this person just say? From a distance, the person who shouted showed himself. Everyone in the factory is required to wear work clothes, but this person was dressed casually. And I could see his watch shining. In this factory, dealing with precision machinery, wearing a watch is supposed to be prohibited. There's a risk of damaging the products. Of course, I'm also wearing work clothes and not carrying anything like watches or mechanical pencils. If you have time to hang out with bottom feeders, get back to work. Or if you're so free, go buy some coffee, and of course, you're paying for it. The man spoke languidly, dripping with sarcasm. After saying what he wanted, he strutted off somewhere. What an insolent attitude. Michael, who was guiding me, turned pale. He started apologizing to me profusely. I'm truly sorry. No, Michael, it's not your fault. That was Brian, the division head, right? Yes, he's the head of the General Affairs Department. I've heard about it. This company is family-run, and the family members wield significant power. I've heard that some of them take advantage of their positions with arrogant attitudes. Brian is especially notorious for his haughty demeanor. Michael kept apologizing to me. It must be tough dealing with Brian. I'll make sure Brian apologizes. No, it's okay. I have another appointment soon anyway, and you've got your hands full. When I said that, Michael seemed a bit relieved. But the next moment, he straightened up again, and his expression became serious. I'm really sorry. Today was the first time I met Michael, but he's well regarded by our employees. Talking to him, I felt he was a trustworthy person. After a bit of conversation, we left the production area of the factory. Still, it seems this company has its issues. There are earnest and dedicated employees like Michael. On the other hand, people who can't even follow basic manners or rules are in managerial positions. No company is perfect, but it's something that should be addressed. And Brian, what a rude person. His name is Brian. In his mid-40s, he's the head of the General Affairs Department, a relative of President Johnson, which explains his condescending attitude. He seems to be quite well known. Before visiting the company, I heard various things from our employees. Some of them have witnessed Brian's terrible attitude. Especially targeted is Michael. Originally from the General Affairs Department, he moved to sales last year. It seems he had a rough time in the General Affairs Department. Just from a little chat with our employees, I got this much information. I wonder if he's going through even harder times. Thinking about Michael makes my heart ache. In my previous job, I was harassed by a boss like Brian. That's why I can't help but empathize. People like him are just unreasonable. They shove impossible tasks onto us and then yell if we can't do them. I was blamed to the point of nearly losing my dignity. Remembering the past, I tremble with anger. Now that I'm an entrepreneur, I strongly wish not to become an unreasonable person. Hey, incompetent, where the hell is my coffee? Do I have to say it multiple times for you to understand? That's why you're incompetent. Brian, please stop. Just when I thought he had disappeared, that man came back. He's kicking the trash can while yelling loudly. In what world does a department head kick a factory's trash can? It's appalling. Michael apologized to me once and then ran towards Brian. They seem to be talking, but Brian seems to have gotten even angrier. Again, he kicks the trash can and yells out loud. Then, he took Michael towards the stairs. Hey, you trying to defy me? Is Michael okay? Knowing Brian, he might do something even worse. He probably doesn't realize I'm the president of a client company. If I tell him, maybe that will calm things down for now. Thinking this, I headed towards the stairs. As I got closer to the stairs, I could see the two of them. As expected, Michael was getting a mouthful from Brian. I approached and called out to them. I apologize for the late introduction, That was the moment. Brian grabbed my shoulder forcefully and pushed me hard. We were at the top of the stairs. I lost my balance and fell down. There was a loud thump. For a moment, I didn't understand what had happened. It hurts. My whole body is in pain. This is bad. Wow, you fell down pretty hard. Brian was smirking, clapping his hands and laughing. Laughing after pushing someone down the stairs. That's insane. It's your fault, bottom feeder. Bottom feeder. So, he mistook me for an employee of his own company. But still, that's terrible. Just because I'm an employee of his company, he thinks he can do anything. Anger wells up inside me. Not just towards this man. It's anger towards unreasonable people. I've been working diligently and earnestly. My superiors dismissed me, saying a dull and boring person like me would always be at the bottom. I've been hit in the head with crumpled trash more than once or twice. I've never been able to tell anyone. I wanted to keep this miserable self hidden. I thought it was okay as long as I endured the terrible treatment from my superiors. Such past experiences flash back. Incompetent bottom feeders should sleep on the ground. He smirks, truly looking like he's enjoying himself. The moment I saw that expression, my anger reached its peak. I will never forgive this man. I declare loudly to Brian, who is smirking at me. Tell President Johnson that the $20 million contract is off. Hey, you are joking, right? Little bottom feeder. Such a lie will be exposed in no time. You don't belong in this factory. You're too weak. Get out of here. Brian was laughing as if he was about to dance, thoroughly enjoying himself. Michael, with a pale face, informed him. What are you talking about, Brian? This is President Smith from our client company. Apologize to him right now. Huh? Brian looked at us with a dumbfounded expression. Michael, you can't be serious. Why would Mr. Smith from our client company be here? We were about to have a $20 million deal. It's a significant deal, so I thought I'd inspect the site myself. But Brian, with someone like you around, the deal is off. I glared at him intensely. Brian's face literally started turning pale. Where did his earlier attitude go? Looking at his fingertips, they were trembling. No, come on, that's a joke. Today, we were expecting a job hopper in his 20s, someone who didn't do well as a fresh graduate. I'm in my 30s, though. Hey, I'm approaching my late 30s, but I've been told I look like a college student. I'm short and have a youthful face. Honestly, it's been a significant complex for me. That's why I want to succeed as an entrepreneur and become a big man. Brian, this cannot be overlooked. What you did is a serious crime. There's no way I can forgive this. No, wait, that's a lie. I don't believe it. A president with that kind of face. Lies, all lies. Brian, how can you say such a thing? Still talking like that? I handed my business card to Michael again and urged him to show it to Brian. Naturally, my business card states that I am the president. Brian reluctantly looked at the card. But the president here is supposed to be an old man. Brian, how disrespectful can you be? Brian's hands, holding the business card, were trembling slightly. He quickly took out his cell phone and started looking up something. He must be searching for information about our company. Of course, bringing cell phones into the factory is prohibited. Wow, it's true. The president changed last year. No, it's not my fault. With that, Brian ran away. Not even a single apology. What a pathetic man. Michael was concerned about me and quickly called for help. Despite the intense pain all over my body, my feelings of anger were stronger. I will never forgive that man. After Brian ran away, I immediately went to the hospital. I was worried because I had hit my body hard, but thankfully, no bones were broken. However, it wasn't without consequence. I got a medical certificate and called my lawyer, John, from the hospital parking lot. I explained the situation and asked for his support in taking legal action. When I returned to the company, President Johnson was there to apologize. He was talking at the company's entrance with the receptionist. Upon seeing me, Mr. Johnson immediately began to apologize. He also urged Michael to apologize. This action also angers me. Please stop this here. Can't you at least consider the place? When I said that coldly, Mr. Johnson apologized even more deeply. Did he not hear what I just said? I sighed. For this company, $20 million is a very significant deal. We hadn't reached a formal agreement yet, but it was almost settled. But calling someone incompetent, a bottom feeder, and then pushing them down the stairs. I can't think of doing business with a company that has such people. Michael, I truly appreciate your help today. I'm grateful for your extensive knowledge and detailed explanations. Upon hearing this, Mr. Johnson looked pleased. Does he think he's forgiven now? So, why hasn't Brian come to apologize? Why isn't the main culprit here apologizing? I have nothing but gratitude for Michael. Why is Michael here apologizing? It doesn't make any sense. It was right when I made that declaration. Several men entered from the company's entrance. Among them was Brian, looking utterly pale. He was being pulled and pushed by the men around him. What a miserable sight. Can't he even apologize properly? I'm so sorry. I didn't understand what was happening. Yeah, you were impressive, huh? Especially being so young and a president. That's amazing. And, they all started apologizing vehemently. It's really a nuisance. For now, I had them shown to the reception room. Mr. Johnson started talking about what would happen next. Firstly, Brian would be demoted. He wouldn't be in the general affairs department, but would join the line work in the factory instead. For someone who used to strut around, this must be humiliating. Brian wasn't wearing work clothes, and he was wearing a watch, right? And such a person will work in the factory. It makes me want to cancel the contract even more. I've experienced it myself, but what do you think line work is? Mr. Johnson, you're taking your job too lightly. Mr. Johnson went silent. Then he clung to me, suggesting, then, we'll fire this man. Hearing this, Brian started to panic. If I get fired, what am I going to do, James? It's all his fault. A president looking like a college student, that's a lie. It's not my fault. Help me, James. Brian was restrained by the employees and led out of the room first. I didn't want to see his face any longer either. I have a medical certificate, so I'll consult with my lawyer and go to the police. As for new projects, we will cancel the deal. We'll also reduce our current deals going forward. Mr. Johnson, it's because you let your relative run wild that this happened. Please leave at once. With that, Mr. Johnson, with a downcast and pale face, left. Brian would be fired because of the $20 million deal falling through. The next day, I consulted again with my lawyer, John, and decided not to settle with Brian. What he did cannot be forgiven. If I had been unlucky, I could have lost my life. Brian called me, but I couldn't forgive him. Please, I'll apologize. I have loans for my car and apartment. If I get fired, I won't be able to live. I didn't think you were the president. It's not my fault, right? That was the gist of it. His words weren't an apology. He just wanted to be forgiven. The thought of such people genuinely apologizing seems far-fetched. It might be better to show them hell. Upon investigation, Brian is single but was dating a young and beautiful woman, and marriage had been discussed. I was worried that her life might also be ruined, but it turned out to be no problem. The incident became gossip, and it reached her ears. As a result, she left Brian. And something that shouldn't be forgotten is the fact that there were people in the past who have been victims of Brian's harassment. Due to Brian's harassment, many people had resigned. Michael worked hard on this matter. Is this what a professional does? I can't believe it. It's unimaginable. Michael had gathered a lot of evidence of the harassment he had experienced. He also collected numerous other pieces of evidence and reported them to me. Misuse of expenses, harassment of employees. The content was truly appalling. It seems he particularly targeted young, capable individuals. Essentially, it was jealousy towards promising young people. Brian's pettiness became quite evident. Finally, Brian was fired from the company. Not only was he fired, but he was also being sued from various sides. I consulted with John and sued Brian too. I met Brian once afterwards. His once plump figure had started to thin, and his thick, brown hair was beginning to thin on top. In his own way, he must be struggling under the pressure. Please, I'll do anything. I've been happily working at my uncle's company since high school graduation. I never thought it would come to this. You're older than me, aren't you? Working since high school graduation means a considerable number of years. All this time, you've been careless. The company didn't deal with you because you're Mr. Johnson's relative. You're a problem, but so is the company. Brian came to our company a few times, so I had him escorted out by security each time. I had no intention of accepting his self-satisfying apologies. It's a nuisance to our employees. If he comes to the company again, I'll sue him for business interference. I told him not to come again if he disliked that idea. He loitered around the company for a while, but he should be looking for a new job instead. Eventually, I decided to officially cut ties with that company. I'm the president. Cutting ties with potentially risky companies is, I believe, only natural. I found better trading partners, so it was a great decision for me. The company seems to be in dire straits, but I think it's only natural. They let a bad employee run rampant just because he was family. The responsibility lies with Mr. Johnson and those around him. After we cut ties, other companies started to do the same. Some must have been contracting with them out of necessity. That company is probably finished now. After being fired, Brian was also expelled from family gatherings. I heard he had to let go of his newly purchased apartment and car because he couldn't pay the loans. Please, I'm begging you, I'll apologize, just help me. Hire me, I'll even lick your shoes. He caused a scene in front of the company, but who would hire someone like that? The company is precious to me. Now, he seems to be barely getting by with day labor, but is not going well. He's yelled at and instructed by younger people and keeps quitting jobs. In this state, he might eventually be unable to make a living. It's only natural. Working means carrying responsibility. He did nothing but harass young people for fun. Such a person won't do well anywhere. His future looks bleak, but it's entirely self-inflicted. As for me, I continue to be busy as usual. Thinking about the company from morning till night is surprisingly comforting. In my busy days, I visit my ailing father and my brother, who is dealing with illness. I receive advice from them both and continue to learn every day. Without becoming complacent as a president, I aim to continue learning at all times. By the way, Michael is now working at our company. After hearing that he had resigned from his previous company, I scouted him and had him join our General Affairs department. General Affairs is an essential department that supports the company. It's a department where meticulous attention is required, and Michael is excelling there. And we make sure to compensate him accordingly for his achievements. Some may say that the work in General Affairs isn't glamorous. However, it's an indispensable part of the company. I aspire to be a president who recognizes such things and cultivates employees who can also recognize them. It reminded me of my previous job. The days I was troubled and cried over the unreasonable attitudes of my superiors. It was truly difficult. I don't want my employees to go through such experiences. I believe that through this experience, I've managed to overcome a bit of my dark past. My life as a president has only just begun.